Well, long before I became part of the Backyard Carpenters with Jane, I helped move a church. There it is. So I worked with Auburn's Rural Studio with second-year architectural students, and we moved this church board by board. Each board's labeled and put in the CAD system. So now it's back at old ghost town Cahawba, where it originally came from. The church was built about 1830, and about 1870, 20 families moved it to Martin Station, and in 2000, the state of Alabama bought it. All right, so with the architectural students, we were able to move it and bring it back here. Now, Alabama Correctional System is the one who put it back up, but this is where it is today. It's back home. It's an attraction to the park, and let me show you more. Okay. Let me back off and try to give you a full view. Now, from the floor to the tip was 45 feet. So this was an upjohn design that all Episcopal churches were to use in 1800s. Right? This one was here at Ghost Town Cahawba, and they had to make it bigger and better. Now, this part right here that you see was actually a bell tower that they said was 100 feet tall. So when the families moved the church in 1870, no one quite knows what happened to the bell tower. And so when we were taking it apart, we realized that it had buttresses. That's what those things are you see right there. The buttresses had been added. Now, all the stained glass got blown out about 1931 in a really bad storm. So also in about 1931, somewhere around there, the Episcopal Church, because there was hardly any attendance anymore, decided to what they called defrock it. All right, so it became a missionary Baptist church. So when we found it there at Martin Station, which is outside of Selma, it was leaning really bad, and the foundation, all the mortar had, because it had no Portland cement, it was gone. So the bricks were just laying on top of each other. So this used to be a picnic area for the park. Again, the park is located outside of Selma, and it was a fascinating way to be able to meet. Oh, by the way, this front entrance that you see right here didn't exist anymore. It had somehow been removed. So when it was put back together, that was built in place. Recently, because of the state laws, and this is a state park, they've had to add that elaborate looking handicap ramp. So this was quite a challenge. We had to bring in, we estimated the arches, which are on the inside, we estimated that they weighed about 5 tons. So we brought in a 20-ton lift and built a jig to attach to each arch in 10 different places with straps that were rated 3,000 pounds each to be able to move this. So that's, I'm here to do a walking tour for the Civil War. So I'll maybe have time to show more of this later. Here's another view, kind of a distance to get to see how large the church was. Like I said, when they used the upjohn design, because this location was the first physical capital for the state of Alabama, okay, for the state of Alabama. And so they built it bigger and better. Again, on the left-hand side was a bell tower that stretched 100 feet, so when they rang the bell, you could hear it all the way to Selma. So again, don't know what happened to the bell tower or the bell. We did find a bell, but it just turned out to be an old farm bell that somebody had put in the church. What you're looking at is the footprint of where that, by the way, the church was called St. Luke's Episcopal Church. Now it's just known as St. Luke's. But this is the footprint that they found that the church sat. Now, the original design, I don't know if I can really show it to you, it actually, if you looked up above and like a drone, it was the shape of a cross. All right, so through time, all right, the soil has eroded away, so the left-hand wing is kind of, the land is gone. But anyway, this represents where the bell sat. All right, so this shows you a picture of what they think it looked like. This is the only drawing, but there's a lot of fallacies about it, but this is the drawing of what they think it looked like with the 100-foot tower. Let me back up just for, as you can tell, if that was 45 foot from the ground up to the peak of the church, that's not 100, so it would have even been taller than that. So when you go through here and look at the footprint of the church where it used to sit, they had 4 names. I can't remember them all. It's like vestive, nave, altar, and something else. But anyway, the land is now, you know, since 1830s has eroded away, and so the back end of the church, you can barely see that it was right here, but the land is eroded away, and now there's trees in a creek or ditch. But so straight across from here would have been the second part that would have made it look like a cross. What I'm approaching is now a still outline of where the Capitol building, or State House building, excuse me, would have sat when this was the first state capitol. Okay, and there were other sites for other capitals, but those were for the territory. This is for when it was a state. So they found the original outline for where it sat, and they're doing some more determining what this is. Okay, and we've had a tremendous amount of rain lately, and of course everything's filling up with water. But this represents, what is interesting is even back in the 1800s, you had newspapers doing what you would call false news. So in the Tuscaloosa area, they had a newspaper that was claiming, because Cahawba is flanked by 2 rivers, the Cahawba and the Alabama. The Alabama's over there, the Cahawba's over there. Anyway, that they were having, the representatives were having the rowboat to the Capitol building every day, which was not the truth. In those days, in the beginning days of the Capitol being here, the rivers were not flooding. Now, what was interesting is when we got ready to bring the church back, okay, and that's where the original sat, according to the 100-year floodplain, we would have had to build the foundation 17 feet. So it was chosen to go what was the picnic area.